So welcome to another behind the scenes of a wedding. This one is gonna be shot in New Jersey. We are in Cranford, New Jersey right now, I believe. Cranford, I think Cranford or Linford, who cares? So we're gonna take you along for the journey today. It is a standard wedding. It's a 5 to 8 minute feature film is their final film, as well as a doc film, so that doesn't change much. We always shoot things the same. Pablo's here, I'm here, 2 shooters, and we got Bobby on the BTS. He's killing it. So let's head on in. Bridal prep first, let's do it. Good. Hi, everybody.
Hi, stop it. Yes, we are waiting for one of the bridesmaids still to come though. I haven't shot it.
That's fine. I'm gonna shoot. I more get your stuff right away. Okay. Your dress, any like all your actual details. Okay. Like shoes, jewelry,
it takes a little bit of time.
Okay. Nice.
Puppy! Why are you all crazy?
So you're good. Yeah, probably this is good, right? Like that. Yeah?
And Nicole goes, who's this? And Grace and I go, yeah. She goes, look at her trying to steal our pumpkin. This is our day.
Wait, these do.
Go a little bit more this angle, yeah. Yes. Yeah, because I just don't want to see the reflection on the hanger.
I was like, she owns those?
I know, they're so ugly. I've been so
Beautiful.
Yeah?
What do you mean?
No, I mean, maybe the case, but do you need to freaking say that like over and over again? When you know
You do. No, it isn't.
And then bring intensity down and come closer for me, so it doesn't spread so much. Less intensity, just get like a little bit higher. A little bit more of an angle, like closer to the dresses.
He commented on one of my pictures. Rich is going, you both are so adorable.
So look here, thank God. Yeah. Let's see what happens.
So nice.
But she not, but it's fine.
There's like a blue cream thing that I have. Do you want me to pour one for you?
I didn't even know you were there.
Pour another one, fellas.
Rebecca, remind me. I have cream. Get closer to my head.
No, this is what you're doing. Exactly.
Yeah.
So a situation like this, I like to have basically 2 different white balance presets. So when I'm shooting in this room, it's very orange, obviously, because the Kelvin needs to be adjusted big time this direction. And then when I shoot in that room, it's all daylight. So instead of readjusting every single time, I've just set up 2 different presets so that when I go into there, I already have it dialed in, and then I can just switch to my other white balance preset, which makes it way easier instead of adjusting every single time. Get it good, set it, keep changing.
Great hair lens. Really? Thanks. I feel like it's so dead. Yeah. What is wrong with you? You have such a
This is on my flip flop.
Oh.
And if you can get just a little bit closer.
Oh,
to
okay.
her,
I didn't know how close.
Yeah, it looks good.
I know.
Yeah, it's just a little edge. Just like you were not.
He's like, bitch, I don't know you right now.
Paxton.
Let me see the front. Yeah, front. Okay. Let me go underneath you now. Watch your arm. I was waiting for Janelle. She's here though. Oh.
It's your wedding day.
Vision. You are a freaking vision.
You can do that.
Keep doing it?
You don't actually have to do much.
Well, it still needs a little bit.
glance a little bit out the window. All right, so I will get this.
Here. Look what I got.
Hang the mirror.
Oh, it's so nice out. Concierge service here, huh?
Oh yeah, it's the only thing I know how to do.
How was your stuff?
Good.
A lot of people ask me, do you need an Inspire for good wedding films? The answer is of course not. Is it awesome? Yes. Cases with wheels are the best. I also always like to shoot all the gimbal stuff in 60 frames a second. It actually turns the head up with you, and down turns the head down with you, where the other mode, if I do this, it still stays flat. This is really good for the shots, like if I want to go like this and pan up, then I want to kind of come down. It allows me to get those real nice.
All right, so Scott's definitely said this in a previous behind the scenes, but this is the Roland RO5 that we use. It's a great little recorder, I guess, and that we usually put it right here for the readings. So this is what I'm going to put right here, just so that we capture that. That'll be good right there. That's good. And then I've also said this in previous as well, but these are Tascams DR10s, and we usually put these on one on the officiant, one on the groom, and they are great. They come with Countryman B3 little microphones, and they work phenomenally well. I gotta find the guys now, so. Lindsay and Richard's ceremony, officiant laugh. So you can put that wherever that's comfortable for you. Probably the best way to do it, yeah, you can do that, and then the best way is to probably bring this up through. So if that's comfortable for you. Oh, no problem, yeah. Oh, that's for the chairs. Oh yeah, of course, no problem, that's fine, yes, of course. And then you bring that up what's comfortable, and then what I can help with what yeah, perfect. Yeah, I'll move it so it looks, so it doesn't look too.
So I've told you before about my battery charging station. I love this thing. I can charge batteries, just get some extra batteries charging remotely. I don't have to worry about finding an outlet. Super convenient. Little power bank. I have a video all about this, but you should check it out. This power bank, charging batteries while we're just sitting here, no need for outlets. So convenient. So instead of jumping through the entire ceremony and showing you bits and pieces of all of it, I wanted to walk you through kind of the main flow of how we do things in terms of a typical ceremony. Now, the rest of the ceremony was kind of not necessarily as planned because we did have to move a lot more than we prefer. But here's a brief multicam type of look of how we actually do things. We don't necessarily do it this way every single time, but it's pretty close in terms of what we're going for. As you can see here in this BTS camera up here, that's me. My head is shining brightly from that angle. And you see there's 3 cameras here. The 3 cameras are a safe camera over on the right. Pablo's camera is all the way down the middle aisle. He's looking back at the bride, and I have the gimbal here. And here's kind of how we do this. As she begins to walk up, Pablo knows that he has a job, and that is to turn around and get a groom reaction. So right away, you can see here as she starts to come through the door, Pablo turns around right here and he gets me a groom reaction shot so that we can jump to that at any given point. I usually want him to do it for about 5 to 10 seconds. This was a long aisle, so he had plenty of time to be able to turn back around, but he's waiting there, just getting a groom reaction shot. I'm following the bride here. You can see just a basic follow, so I can go to that at any point. You can see this shot is always safe over here. He then turns, and then his position is to get a tight shot the rest of the time following the bride down the aisle. Now you can see here, the bride is obviously past me at this point. Now I make it a point to not walk into his shot. If I were to go behind right now, I'd walk into his shot here, and I'd also walk into the photographer's shot, which would not be kind of me. So I wait until I know that he's getting me a good shot. This is my main camera that I know I'm going to go to. I know he's going to get a shot. And I'm looking right around this lady right now. I can see Pablo is still right here. When I see Pablo move, that means that she's too close to be in frame anymore. So he will move his camera. So you can see right here, he begins to move. And in this top shot up here, I can see that he's walking away. As soon as he does that, that's also an indication to me that the photographer probably is gone as well, because they're probably too close. As soon as he starts to move, I then walk into the aisle with the gimbal that's on my monopod, so this whole walking transition is nice and steady, which is great because I can just keep it steady. There's the photographer in my shot, which is completely okay because she's obviously just getting into her position. When I get to this point right here, which is ultimately what I'm going for, I'm getting a wide of the actual handoff between the dad and the groom. Pablo then is in position for a tight cam, and then this one's not getting anything at the point. So continuing on, Pablo stays tight. As soon as they start to move into position, he will then leave that spot. He knows that I have a safe shot here, and I will tell him on the walkie-talkie that my shot is safe. He then flies around. You can see that he's now moving. He goes all the way over to this position over here. He locks it down on a tripod. He tightens in and gets to whoever is speaking, which is usually at this point the priest. Now this is why this ceremony was very tricky. This big plant, which was strategically placed in a very bad position, is blocking kind of the shot the entire time, which is why we had to actually move these cameras later on in the ceremony, because normally this would be a perfect shot. Not in this case, but you can see that he gets in position. Once he eventually tells me he's locked in and the person is in focus, which you can see happens right there, I will then move and I will leave the area and I will go to my secondary position, and I will also go to this camera over here and I will tighten in and get an even better shot on the safe camera and check exposure and all that as well. So that's kind of how we do the early part of the ceremony. At various times throughout the ceremony, you will see me move from location to location. Now, the great thing about the setup that I have is I have that gimbal on a monopod. So when I'm walking from place to place, in this case, I'm going to that camera on the right-hand side to go get myself in a different position for it. The whole transition between places, for the most part, stays relatively smooth, and it gives me some motion during the ceremony. So if I play this, you'll see that that camera over here stays relatively smooth because I'm just walking into position, but because it's on a gimbal, it actually works out okay.
Life. The formula, said Mr. Ford.
Then I will just go to another position. In this case, I'm just waiting until the next thing happens. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this was a very unique ceremony because of those plants being in a really weird position. So I actually ended up moving that camera that's usually far right to this back area right here. So this is the camera on a 70-200. This is the shot that it is getting. No, I'm sorry. This is the shot. So as you can see, because of the trickiness of the plants that I talked about earlier, this camera I actually had to move all the way to the back and zoom in. So the shot you're seeing right here is actually from my gimbal, me standing there. And then the shot that is actually getting is this shot right here, a tighter shot, all the way in and more of a safe shot. And then I think if he kept rolling the BTS, which looks like he stopped, he will eventually hold that gimbal for me for a second so I can reposition. But this camera never gets moved to this position, but because those plants were in the way, I had no other option, and I moved it back the whole time, and then eventually I move it back later. That's not normally what we do. So then at the end of the ceremony, I eventually walk down and I go to the front area and on my gimbal and monopod setup, and I follow the bride and groom out all the way as they're walking. This works really, really well. The photographer is right next to me. I am intentionally making sure that I stand next to her and I do not block her shot because that would be rude of me. So she is walking right next to me, getting the shot she wants, and the whole time that they're moving, I am able to get the shots I need on a gimbal, and it looks like this. I'm not worried at all about blocking people's shots at the wedding because the couple pays me to get shots. They don't pay the couple. They don't pay the guests at all, so they want me to get the better shot. They don't necessarily care about their guests getting it. And I just walk all the way out. I follow them out. Then I position this camera just to get the final people walking. Pablo goes and gets the audio. And the ceremony is complete. They're not doing any photos here. No photos here at all, so we'll just pack up and then we're going right to the park.
So you're not like... Cheers, guys. Cheers.
What's up? Ceremony went pretty good. That was kind of a tough one actually because they had these plants that were like directly in the way of all our shots that are normally from that angle. So we moved a lot more in that ceremony than we ever do. That is not normally how much we move. Normally the only camera moving is the one that I'm on with the gimbal and monopod, but there was a lot of movement because every single time we were shooting from our normal angles, there was a big, huge plant in the way. So yeah, wasn't ideal, but we made it work.
Y'all should make out.
You guys need to like each other.
You guys. And little kiss right there.
All right, come in for a kiss. So we were at a venue called the Seasons or something in some part of Jersey. Very nice. I want to get a gimbal out right away.
Okay.
Start shooting some of that.
I'll start to establish it here.
Yeah. Okay, so welcome to the Seasons. This is the reception area, and I wanted to kind of walk you through briefly our setup. Per usual, we like to light speeches and first dances. It really gives us the look that we're going for, where we can really solo out the person that's giving speeches and the first dances so that you don't see everything else happening. So what we are basically doing per usual is we have our dual light stand here with our torch LEDs. Both of them are on the same exact color temperature and same exact lighting so that I can turn them on and off accordingly with my little handy dandy remote. Super useful. I love this little thing. So that will light out this direction, and then we will shoot from that direction for the speeches, which you will see in just a little bit. We will also use that for the first dances and for everything else that we need to actually specifically highlight the people that are in the center. We really like to do that. It has nothing to do with whether or not we have light in the room. It has everything to do with being able to get the light how we want it. And because this reception starts in about an hour, this will be very dark outside, which will be perfect because our lights will really be able to light it up how we want. So that's what we're doing. We just got done wrapping up some establishers. We grabbed some audio. Let me run you through quickly what we did on the audio side. So on the audio side, I'm using my Zoom F8 as I always do. We are coming out there actually giving us board feed directly from it. When you get a DJ that knows what they're doing, it's nice because they can give you a clean signal out of the actual system itself. So that's what I'm doing. I'm running XLR out of their board right into the Zoom F8. If I wasn't, the first thing I would always look for is whether or not they have a powered speaker or an unpowered. If they have a powered speaker, you'll always see that there's an XLR line out of the speaker. That is one way to do it that I think is super effective. If they don't have a board mix, then you could obviously just do it from speakers. If they have a board mix, I like to use that, but I make sure that I really check it out first and get levels set, because the board mixes can be inconsistent if they change volumes a lot throughout the actual night. So that's how I'm doing it today though. Zoom F8 at the board. So our normal first dance entrance setup is always exactly the same, and the goal is that I have Pablo on one of the GH5s on a 70-200, so the 35-100 lens, 70-200 equivalent. I will have him, his main focus is to get me tight as can be, really clean, well lit from a different angle of the light, and then I am on the gimbal with the GH5S and I will get all the movement shots. So his goal is to always have a great shot, and then my goal is to get some more creative shots that I could jump to. I like to shoot all entrances and first dance stuff in 60 frames a second. That's just a preference that we like because we can obviously slow it down a tiny bit. So for speeches, we will actually switch up the setups that we have. So I will go on the tight shot, which is really focused primarily on the person that is actually giving the speech. I will shoot that from the opposite angle of the light, and then we will actually take the GH5S off of the gimbal, and Pablo will use that with a 25 1.2 lens, or maybe even a 35-100, and get all the reaction shots of the actual people listening, the people laughing at speeches, the couple reacting, all those things. We want to get good reaction shots so that we can always cut to those spots at the correct time. Anytime you get lots of reaction shots from people, you can obviously intertwine those at any point because you don't know when they actually occurred, and so it works really well. So gimbal first for the entrances, and then we switch after that, which you'll see how that switch happens. It's usually pretty quick if the speeches are coming right after the entrances, which we'll see if they do. So I just got a chance to talk with the best man and the bridesmaid and the people that are giving the speeches. I always make sure that I go up to them, explain where I need them to stand, center dance floor, and I light them so that they're prepared for that, so they're not completely thrown off. Okay. If you want people to stand in a certain spot, you gotta tell them where. Let's go. Alright, we are jumping to present day and I'm editing this BTS, and I just realized that the guy shooting the BTS, great friend of mine, so I'm not throwing him under the bus, but whenever I was not visible, he did not show where I actually was to shoot this, so I wanted to just quickly freeze this frame and explain a little bit about the setup and then show you some shots from it, so it would hopefully be helpful. This is the way that we normally shoot our first dances. As you can see over here, this is the actual light that we use. So there are two torch LED lights on that stand that are controlled from me where I'm currently standing, and I turn them on for the whole first dances. They're always shooting from that direction, and then I do a lot of glide cam work throughout. So as you can see, I always am moving around and shooting either into the light or from other angles of the light. I'm never shooting with it. You never want to shoot with the light because it just looks very bad. If you watch when I come around this side, this shot I won't actually use. This is me getting into position at the next spot. But you can see how terrible direct from the same angle of light it looks, because that's not how light should be shot at. But when you can see when I get on this side, there's lots of really good, just really good light, really good definition on the people. It's lit well. And we like to do that not because we can't bump up ISO, but because, as you can see, it really separates the people from the background, so it really highlights them more. And then Pablo's shot is the more tight shot on the actual. His shots are like this when they are dancing. He is tight. shooting from the same angle that I shoot from on speeches, so it really gets a nice definition there of the couple, and it eliminates everybody else being in the background. If we did not have lights on the people, we would have to just bump up the ISO, which wouldn't look good. But you can see from here, there's the really good view of my lights coming from that. I'm not obviously using the shot, but that's how we do it. We light them from over here, and then I move around. Pablo stays tight, and yeah, sorry that I don't have any footage of me doing that, but here's some samples of what the actual shot looks like.
And a lot of people, a lot of dads talk about how the first time they met their future son-in-law, they said, this is the guy for my daughter. Well, on that day, junior prom, Lindsay was only a sophomore. I don't think so.
So it is dinner time. Overall, so far, our wedding's going really well. Nothing unusual, typical flow. Everything's going pretty well. We always like to bring cameras when we eat because we like to just review footage. Not that it matters. I don't know why we review footage, as though we could change it if we didn't like it, but we do like to bring the footage in, look at what we have, just get a feel for how things are going. And overall, though, going really well.
You let me down again.
Thanks for everything. Thanks so much for the food. Like, it's amazing. We really appreciate it.
That's all. Very nice talking to you guys as well.
Thank you.
Yes, you too.
Well, that's it. Everything went pretty well. Pretty good second wedding of the season. Good old New Jersey. We're headed home.